Welcome to another Club Rum video. Please consider subscribing to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notified of future videos.
Hello everyone, I'm Johnny from Club Rum. Some of you might know me already. I see a number of new faces for me as well during these sessions. So welcome to what is our final tasting of this year. And we're going out with a bang, to say the least. So what we have today, or who we have today, is Karsten Vlierbroom, CEO at E&A Scheer in Amsterdam. I think most of you joined this meeting or this tasting either because of the name E&A Scheer or the name Karsten. So a lot of pressure on you, Karsten, this time. But without further ado, please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Jenny, for asking me. I'm proud to be on this panel. It is true that we were the best kept secret in the rum world for quite a long time, for I think about 249 years. And then last year we decided that, you know, instead of everybody talking about us, let's at least talk about us ourselves, so that the story that we have and the things that we do come from the horse's mouth themselves. So just about myself, Karsten Vlierbroom. So I'm in my late 50s, 57. Been with Scheer for 25 years. Started as a well, what they would call a crown prince in those days, because it was a very old family company with no succession, and they needed a professional who could help them to bring Scheer into a new era. Rest of it really is history. I climbed my way up and became master blender along the way, just by doing a lot of rum tasting, nosing and smelling and visiting loads of distilleries, talking to loads of clients, and you know, in the process you get to taste a lot of rum as well, obviously. So now still master blender and CEO, they call me, Chief Executive Officer. Sounds great. But I will be changing that to Chief Rum Officer, because I think that sounds nicer. And the whole CEO thing is you know, reporting and stuff. I'll leave that to somebody who's good at that. I'll just be doing rum, and that's what I love. So good thing. So tonight, what we could do is make it very interactive, if you like. You could do your questions through the chat, and then Johnny will pick them up and sort of try and interrupt me to get the questions through. What I intend to do is go through a presentation, which is maybe a little less personal, but please don't hesitate to raise your hand and just ask questions and stuff. So maybe a good thing, Jenny, if I start sharing the screen. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, please.
All right. Give me a second. Now, this is Zoom, so it's very complicated, I guess. However, if I do this and I do this.
Yes.
Does everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Good. That's the last slide.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's good to know where the company is situated now.
So what I'll do is I'll start at the first slide. That might be better. There we go. And so today, Johnny asked me to tell you something about the art of rum blending. Is it an art? Yes, it is a bit of an art. There's quite a bit of a technique there as well. There's some chemistry. There is yeah, maybe a lot of history as well. But let me just take you through the rum production, rum dimensions, and rum blending. Because let's say you want to make a rum blend. You know, it's so many places where they produce rum, and you get so many different styles that actually it is a good idea to blend. Talking for my, you know, preaching for my own parish, blending is what we do. We're a rum blending company. There's a lot of advantages in blending, and you can actually get a lot of different liquids by blending other liquids. Now, I don't want to insult any of your knowledge, as I know that most of the people who are attending this tasting know a lot about rum, but I just want to go through the initial steps just to make you understand where the base of blending comes from. Because there is so many styles of rum, and this is because of the production process where any rum is from sugar cane. However, you can use different raw materials for your base. You could say, well, let's make sugar first and use the molasses, or we just use straight juice, or you can make a combination of these two. Another step after that is when you convert sugars into alcohol by fermentation. Again, roughly speaking, there's two ways of doing that. You do it slow and you get a lot of flavors. You do it fast and you get a lot of alcohol because you're concentrating on making alcohol. Then the next step is distillation, where you're concentrating that primary alcohol into a higher level through either a pot still or a column still. Now, there's many types of stills, so this is a very rough distinction. There's all sorts of hybrid stills. There's all sorts of different machines on the market, historically built or new built, but all these different choices, and then aging after that, make sure that you have so many different styles of rum, right? So what do you do next? If you want to start blending, and that's the way we approach it, blending you will always do to reach a target. The rum blend target is what we know. Now, that's pretty complex because right now we have 9 different dimensions that we look at, and we're looking to add another 10th dimension on top of that. And just to use all those different dimensions to get to a rum target means you have to go through all these dimensions and think about the choices you want to make in order to decide which distillates you're going to use in a blend. And then afterwards the blending comes. So we'll just let me take you through these dimensions very, very quickly so that we have a little time to work with the liquids afterwards. So initially, rum profile. You know, if you're going to make a blend, you're going to think initially, is it going to be, let's say, a heavy blend, a light blend, an aged blend, or what sort of profile am I striving to do? Lots of character, or maybe not so much character. All these questions you can ask yourself. You can ask, you know, should it be aged? Is it going to be a fresh rum? Is it going to be an aged rum? In your tasting pack, you have both fresh and aged components there you can play with. Now, if you want an aged style rum, you initially grab the aged ones. If you want a fresh one, you grab the fresh ones. You can make combinations. Then the origins. In your tasting pack, there's a few different origins. So you can choose, am I going to use Barbados? Am I going to use the Agricole from Guadeloupe? Am I going to use maybe some Dominican Republic? But there is more, you know, you just have to think about your concept of a rum blend. Am I going to make a rum blend which is of one particular origin, or would I want to have multi-origins? Anything is possible, really. The appearance is also something which you need to look at. If you want just a straight white rum, well, from your tasting pack, there's three of the little bottles you can combine. But if you put any of the aged rums in there, you will have a tint. So the appearance starts to be yellow or gold. So thinking in advance, what am I going to do? Am I actually going to, is it important to me to have a gold or a white rum, or should it be darker? You could color with caramel for argument's sake. Then the application. Now, if you're going to make a blend, in my world, people ask me for a blend for, let's say, a blend which is very good for daiquiris, or a blend which is good for rum cake, or a blend which is good for pouring over tobacco. Or so the application of where that rum is going to go is also a dimension you need to look at when you're creating a blend for somebody. The market preference, if you are intending to make a blend for sales in France, or making a blend intended to be sold in America, those are two different markets where the flavor preference of people is just different. Going to America, just very broadly speaking, make it a hamburger rum, right? Put some sugar in there, make it nice and easy, everybody will love it. Then the price objective, something always to look at. If you use the blend is always a sum of the components. So if all the components are expensive, the blend is expensive. Very easy way of looking at that. and then the scale of the project. If it's intended to be just a rum blend for, you and a group of friends, you can use any exotic little distillate you can find, and you put it together, and you make, a beautiful blend. If the maximum is just going to be 100 liters or maybe even 10 liters, that's a small scale project. But you could also think, well, I'm going to make something which is going to be sold in, let's say, Hall & Hall or Albert Heijn supermarket or Tesco or Aldi, whatever. Then the scale becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you have to think about the distillates you use. Are they going to be available in that scalability? Is there enough of it? So then all these things, they boil down into a marketing buzzword or a marketing story. You have to think about your rum blend and say, well, I'm going to make this great story about two pirates who crossed each other in the Caribbean on two islands, and then one had a very, very heavy rum, the other one had a light rum, and they came together, they blended their rums, and this is what it made. And it's a beautiful rum, and we all love it, and it's because there was flamingos in the water, and you can think about all sorts of marketing buzzwords and link it to your liquid. We get people with most exotic stories, and they expect me to create a rum blend based on that story, and sometimes it's actually quite funny, but it works. And then actually, when we've gone through all those dimensions and we've made our decisions, then I probably know which distillates I can use from the total portfolio, and the nosing starts. So here's me, big nose, small glass, lots of bottles, and I just start putting things together. And I think that is what Johnny was intending for this evening, is to try and sort of take you through how that works, and maybe get some tips from somebody who blends rum, which is me, and have you play around with liquids to see if you can make something for yourself. Now, in your tasting pack, there's a light rum, there's a Guadeloupe rum agricole, which would be a little heavier, and then there's a Jamaica heavy rum. So think of those as light, medium, and heavy. And then there's a Dominican 3-year-old and a Barbados 8-year-old. So you could think of them as aged and very aged. Now, if you combine just aged rums together, you could make a blend here of a 3-year-old Dominican Republic and an 8-year-old Barbados. Beautiful liquids in themselves, but the combination is going to give it another dimension again. So what you can actually do is you can use this thing, which is what we call the rum matrix, where you can, on the vertical axis going up, you could pinpoint the rum, which would be called light rum in your one, would be down here. Then the 3-year-old Dominican Republic would be here. The 8-year-old Barbados would be around here. And then you'd have a Guadeloupe, which is around there, Jamaica High Ester, which is all the way up there. Now, if you want to, for argument's speak, make a white rum, what you could do is you take that light rum, and if you want sort of a grassy style white rum, you just add some of that Guadeloupe in there. Because if you start taking the bottle of the Guadeloupe and just smell it. Maybe somebody can open up his microphone and tell me what they're smelling. Don't be shy. There's no wrong answers.
I'm not shy.
I know you're not, Chris.
Definitely, there's definitely a lot of, well, the briny, grassy notes that you're talking about going on in it. So clearly that it is coming from cane juice. You get kind of this, like you're next to the beach seaweed with salt water mix, but with it coming from Guadeloupe as well, I get a much oilier smell that's almost going towards like a I call it like a sour cream like thing that maybe doesn't sound overly appealing, but to me it works in this in this setting. But there's something creamy, oily about it that comes across on the nose, almost like a sour cream mixed together with the kind of green briny notes as well.
So just, I'm a simple guy, right? So I would then qualify this as a you know, it's not a light rum, right? This has a lot of flavor.
Okay, great.
So if I were to use this in a blend, I would also always use it as a layer on top of something else. Yeah. So the way I would blend these things is, you take a light rum for argument's sake, which is the other one, the one which is at 95.6%, which is a bit high in alcohol. However, if you were to dilute that with a bit of water, maybe cut it in half or something like that, you end up with about 45, 46% alcohol. And then you just use as a base, and you blend some of the agricole in. And the way you do that is you just add, you know, a few milliliters in there, just little drops. And so smell the light rum before, and smell the light rum after you put some of that Guadeloupe in there. Maybe add some water just to open it up. Now what you get here is you have a you have this nice light rummy base, and you've just added a bit of grassy notes on top of it, and it almost freshens it up a bit. Chris was talking about sour cream, was talking about briny, and just by combining these two, you get sort of more fresh grass. You get more green tones in your nose and things like that. So the brininess is gone more towards, yeah, almost towards lime, right?
Definitely much fruitier.
Yeah,
a lot of fruit, but and sort of the citrus, the green citrus fruits, things like that. So this is the first very simple example of what happens if you blend stuff. Now you might like this as it is, and then you say, okay, my blend's finished, I'm going to go home. However, that's not the objective tonight. Tonight is the object is to teach you a bit more. So you could take another glass and you do the light rum again. Put some light rum in there. Then you take the little bottle called hoog ester or high ester. Now in this case, a few drops is going to be more than enough.
Yeah, so Carson actually means the Jamaica heavy.
Jamaica heavy, or whatever. It's in my notebook. It's called high ester.
Yeah, and we all know it's high ester.
Gianni.
Sure.
Gianni.
Yeah, Richard.
I don't see anyone here. Did you do something, or I don't see Karsten at all, or all the others? So.
Oh, well, you should see Carsten's screen for now.
Only, yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually also what I see.
How about this?
But do you see us now? Carsten has turned off his screen.
No, I don't see anyone.
Try the view on your top right. You can change the views of other attendees there, I think.
Well, still no view of anyone. Only myself.
You do see the view.
Yeah.
So if you click there, you see different.
Clicking on it, and I don't see anyone except myself.
Yeah. But so you can choose gallery or speaker or.
I did, but I don't see anyone. Okay, continue. I'll see what happens.
Maybe
try logging out and coming back in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah, I will do that.
That might help as well. So the second sort of trick we were doing is taking that light rum and putting a few drops of that Jamaica heavy in there. Again, it's a very simple blend where the Jamaica heavy, if you smell that on its own, it's like nail polish remover. It's really high in ethyl acetate and it's not particularly appealing as a rum unless you're an incredible rum geek. But if you put a few drops of that in a light rum, it sort of opens up and you get all this tropical fruit coming out. So again, you've just combined two rums together and created something which is, it's a bit like a tinned pineapple, quite different fruity tones than the first one we made. Now, obviously, being a blender, I then start comparing these two together. That's step number one. And I say, well, you know, which one do I like best? Let's say I like the grassy one best, but maybe I'd like a little tropical fruit in there. So how does a blender work? You take the grassy one and you put some of the tropical fruit in and try again. A lot of trial and error. The trick is if you put too much of the pineapple or the Jamaica in there, you'll lose your fresh grassy notes because all the tropical fruit comes over it. So in this case, you know, blending is a lot of trial and error where you make something and then you build on top of that. And the way that would normally be done is you take a base. In this case, we took a base, the light rum as a base. We made some French influence inside it, putting some of that Guadeloupe in there. And it freshened up the Guadeloupe and it changed the light rum into something a little more interesting. And then you took the light rum, which in itself is just a very basic rum. You're adding some of that Jamaican stuff and you're creating like a tropical fruit bomb. Quite different in style, just two liquids together, different in style. And then if you, again, then cross-contaminate those two with each other, depending on if you put more of the Guadeloupe in or more of the Jamaica in, you get a different style blend again.
You really have to be careful with the Jamaican fruit
Yeah,
bomb.
You do.
Adding it to the light rum because it's overwhelming, really.
It is overwhelming.
Too much, yeah.
I sometimes when I show people the power of this Jamaica stuff, I empty the glass. So I put a bit of the Jamaica in a glass, swirl it around, empty it out. My wife always loves me when I do that in the carpet. But, then adding light rum into that glass where there's just a few drops of this liquid on the side of the glass. It completely transforms light rum into something interesting. With the Guadeloupe, it also works, but you need a little more because the Guadeloupe in itself is not as powerful as that Jamaica rum. The only way to find that out is to play and to try again at different levels of the heavier component into the light components. So those were actually very simple blends, right? Has anybody made something that they like?
Yeah, what do we think, guys? I was going to ask the same question. Who's ready to bottle? I know Chris is, but what about the other guys?
Nothing yet.
Yeah, just unmute and let's hear what you came up with.
I've only followed Carson's instructions so far, so I haven't experimented beyond.
I've tried to mix all the unripened rums.
Yes.
I think it's probably Hampton, right? The last one.
Yeah.
And I added a little more of the Guadeloupe because I think that one is the nicest baseline for me, and a lot of water, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, these are all
But
alcohol.
I'm not there yet, I think.
Okay. So what we've just done, right, is we went up one of those dimensions. I'm just going to share the screen again and show you. Go here. So what we did is we took the light rum from here, we added some Guadeloupe, which is here. So we've just been moving up and down this line here. Very, very simple blending. Now, if you want, you could add another dimension, right? So you can go into the aged rum direction. Or you could start here at 3 and maybe add some 8. But these liquids in itself are already quite nice. So I suggest that you just take a bit of each in separate glasses and compare them first to each other, just as a matter of training your nose and then thinking about what you want to achieve afterwards. Now what we've presented is 2 different ages and two different origins. The only real thing they have in common is just a few things. They're both rums. They're both aged in American oak. They're both gold in color, and they're both well made. Now, although they're well made, if you want to do your blend with 100% of that gold 8-year-old, you're going to be incredibly successful, and Mr. Richard Seal will never love you again because, well, he will love you initially because you're using his rum, but he won't love you when your rum with that, or your blend with that rum, is actually going to be better than his own rums, and he will cut you off. So that 8-year-old is it's quite a nice rounded 8-year-old, and in fact we're cheating a little bit on the rum matrix here, because there is a bit of pot still in there. It's a blend of pot and column, which has been aged up to 8 years in American oak casks, and the 3-year-old is actually very basic column still rum, which has been in American oak for 3 years, all at origin, and already develops quite a nice nose. Now, if you want to make an aged rum and you're blending according to the book and you want an age of younger spirit to be 3-year-old, you could use these 2, mix them together. The 3-year-old determines your age. You might want to do that because the 3-year-old is a nice product in itself, but you might want to have a little variation and put a little touch of 8-year-old wood in there just to enhance the woody notes, make it a little more complex, give it some of that Barbados aging characteristic, and then you can reach quite a nice aged rum. You add some water.
Does it happen a lot, Karsten, that clients come to you with a request of well, sort of an age statement blend, so minimum age, and they also want to declare that on the label, or
yeah, it happens a lot. So the funny thing about age and rum is that you can age a rum in different places. So you could age at origin, which some people refer to as tropical aging, but if we were to age stuff in the south of Spain, it's also tropical aging. So I prefer to say age at origin. And some people, they don't understand that if things are aged in tropical climates, it goes really, really fast. And a lot of people are used to age statements by the whiskey industry, where you know, if you have an 8-year-old whiskey or a 12-year-old whiskey, you know, that's sort of the bare minimum, right? Whereas, you know, a 3-year-old rum could be comparable to a 9-year-old whiskey, because the aging process goes a lot faster. And the development of rum in American oak casks is really, really wonderful. You can do it in different types of oak, obviously, and there's lots of possibilities there. But your basic aged rum of a 3-year-old is already normally quite good in terms of quality. Sometimes people come to us and they say, well, you know, I want at least a 20-year-old rum. And I can nod and I can understand that. And I'll say, well, that's fantastic, you know. But if you have a 20-year-old rum and you lose about 5% of rum every year, you know, you put something in a barrel for 20 years, the barrel's empty, right, at the end of 20 years. It's not exactly like that, but it does. You lose a lot of alcohol along the way. So it's going to be extremely expensive, extremely woody, and the quality might not be as good as a 20-year-old whiskey, because it's just not comparable. You're looking at a 60-year-old in comparison. So age is what people are asking for, and sometimes they want age statements, and we always have to explain what age means in rum. These days, I tell people, you know, age is but a number. You know? That's because I'm aging myself, obviously. But what I try to do is explain that you're looking for a profile and not for an age per se. So here, just by mixing a bit of 8 in the 3-year-old, it automatically becomes the age of younger spirits. So it becomes a 3-year-old rum, should you want to label it. But it actually, by putting the 8-year-old in here, you've enhanced that profile to a level which is fantastic and really, really nice, beyond, you know, putting a 3-year-old on your label. So why would you put 3-year-old on the label if you could say it's a nice blend of 3- and 8-year-old rums?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think that's, I hope, Barry, that answers your question. Well, people should, if they want to put an age statement on the label, should declare the lowest age. But not everyone does that. In the case of a rum blend, as Carsten said, well, they know exactly how old the rum is in the blends, and it's up to the brand what they want to do with that information. Do they want to put it on their label or packaging or not? It's up to them. So, Carsten, I have a question here from Mark. Does the aging continue at Scheer? So you buy rum in bulk and then and barrels, but maybe you can do a deep dive.
Yeah, so we do both. We buy fresh rum, which we put in barrels, and we buy fresh rum, which we put in barrels at origin. So we have aging stocks in Jamaica, for argument's sake. We buy aged rum, which we bring to Amsterdam, and we leave it there. Is it aging? Maybe, maybe not. If we put it in large wooden vats, I don't consider that aging per se. We buy aged rums, which we lay in Liverpool or in Scotland for further development. Aging, yeah, that's aging, because it's in small wooden casks. Yeah, so we do a variety of things, but we're always looking at profiles, right? So if you buy a 3-year-old aged at origin, you can then further age it or finish it in casks in Liverpool or in Scotland. You can take a different cask, or you could put it in an old malt whiskey cask, or you could put it in old port pipes or a Madeira cask or things like that. So we do a lot of experiments like that, which is finishing or development of a rum. Is it technically aging? I guess so, but we don't really say if something is becomes a 3-year-old Barbados rum, and we then put it in a warehouse here and just keep it in a large vat for 3 years. It's still a 3-year-old Barbados rum.
Yeah, I was going to ask one question, Carsten. Does it happen a lot that people ask you to make a blend and then age it? Do you provide that service as well?
It happens, but not a lot, because aging is a long and expensive and tedious process where you have to monitor these things. So not all of our clients have the time and the resources to do that.
Okay.
So they rather buy something which, you know, is ready made and ready for them in 2 weeks than they buy something which is ready for them in 2 or 3 years. Things are moving a little faster these days.
And you could have expected this question from Roald, if Scheer is doing warehouse tours, because he would like to enter and see the warehouses.
Yeah, I can imagine. We don't. The warehouse is on our side at Dekkerweg is a blending warehouse. Yeah, it's not exactly a quiet place where you can just walk around, because there's a lot of people working with big pumps and hoses, and it's actually quite a dangerous environment where there's high-proof alcohols being pumped around and mixed. So it's an explosive environment and things like that. We also have our operations in Liverpool, where people come and select the casks from the collection of casks that we have there. So that's a different thing. It's always on request, and we'd rather do that to people who want to buy rum from us than just the rum enthusiast who wants to take a look around, because visits in that environment are you know, can be disruptive, can be dangerous. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, he's
you
still
have to
laughing.
save a lot of money to buy a cask, and then I can visit.
Well, maybe you should start a group, Roald. You're good at starting Facebook groups, so maybe you should start a group and buy your own barrel.
Yeah, maybe we'll see how that goes, but it's a good plan. I like that.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Always a good idea. Always good. Okay, so just now what we've done is if we've been blending with those aged rums, right? Now, has any of you any preference for the 3 of the 8-year-old or a certain proportion of each? What would you say would be a good starting point for an aged rum?
Going out on a limb and say that it has to do with your personal preference, I think, or a bit your personal taste, right? So
Yeah.
For me, the Caribbean is or the Dominican, it has a sweeter profile. So I would have to use a lot of the Barbados for my personal preference to counter that, which is the Barbados also has the vanilla tones that Foursquare always has, and so it's quite a sweet combination, in my opinion. Roald, I think it was Roald who mixed it up with also Jamaican, I think, and I would also add a third, to be honest.
Yes.
Yeah, I already mixed a few drops of the heavy rum into it, and that was really good.
Yeah, well, that's
So like
I think the other dimensions.
Yeah.
You're mowing the grass in front of my feet, as they say in Dutch. So what if you have like a sort of a proportion of aged rum where either you like to start with a 3 and add some 8-year-old, or you start with the 8 and add some 3-year-old, just to as a blending exercise to make that blend even more interesting. Just a few drops of that Guadeloupe is interesting, or a few drops of the Jamaica is interesting, or a few drops of both. Then all of a sudden you completely change that aged rum again into something with, you know, you have an aged rum with grassy notes. That's quite surprising. Or you could get, you know, what Rode has done. You just put some of the Jamaica in there. You get all this sort of pineapple-y tropical fruit as a layer in all that woodiness that you've created in advance. And then if it's all too powerful, there's always the option of putting some light rum in to tone everything down again, freshen it up, put some water. So there's a lot of possibilities and playing around with these things. What I would normally do in blends is listen to all those voices in my head telling me which dimensions to use, and then you can really, you take a base of something and you start putting layers on top of, either tropical fruits or grassy notes, or you just leave those out and put more wood on it, or you put a little less flavor by just adding some of that light rum to bring down the flavors a bit. There's all these possibilities, and I think that's what we normally play with, is all these different distillates, and try and figure out where we want to go first, then start blending, and then there's a lot of trial and error to end up exactly at that spot you want to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, so actually someone who comes to you to blend a rum, you really want them actually to give you a very detailed description of where they want that rum to be profile wise, because then you can, because we only have five samples now, but I know that you have hundreds of maybe rums to choose from, maybe not all as available, and so the more detailed I think your client is, the better you can start making a blend, because then you probably know which blend you're going to choose first as the base, and then build from there. Am I correct?
In an ideal world, everybody knows what they want. But this is just not what happens. People come in with an idea, they come in with a dream, and they either tell me, this is my dream, create a liquid, and then I get the free hand, and I think about everything, and I put a few blends together, and I propose 3 things to them, and they choose from those, and we work on from there. Sometimes people come in and they know exactly what they want, right? So they want a proportion of 20% 8-year-old with 20% 3-year-old, and then let's put 2.5% of that Guadeloupe in and 1% of that Jamaica. That also happens, but it's a little less fun for a blender. But it's just not so that everybody knows exactly what they're looking for. So normally it's a whole process or a whole journey of talking through the dream and getting a liquid out the other end. But it is, that's fun to do. That's what I do for a living, and I could recommend it to everybody. Just listening to people and seeing what they want and what they like. A lot of things is funny things in blending you come across is that language is very important. Is that sometimes we have Japanese guys over, right? And the Japanese they're very, very mathematical, and they will come with a very set idea of I want 20% of this and 20% of that and 60% of that, and then if you put that together, that's exactly the blend I want. So if you actually show them and do what they say, said no, that's not what we need. We need it to be stronger. So what does stronger mean? Is that more alcohol? Could be. More flavor, stronger flavor could be. So what we do is first I did stronger. Okay, I'll put some more alcohol, some more light rum, higher alcohol percentage. No good. Then stronger flavor, so you put some more of the either Jamaica or some French stuff in there. No good. So then in the end, Japanese stronger meant they wanted a darker color. Yeah, that's something, and language is important. Where French people will tell you they want more of that agricole style or less of that agricole style, and they expect you to understand immediately what they mean and what sort of floral levels they want, etc. But it's quite good fun, and if you have a wide portfolio of rums to play with, you can always get to exactly that that blend that people are looking for. So even tonight, if you have just those 5 bottles and you play around with it, I'm sure you're all having a lot of fun. I'm not sure you have enough though, huh? Because Johnny was a bit tight on the liquid, I think.
Yeah, I was. I certainly was.
you need bottles like this to start with, right?
Well, I think you're going to show them where they can get those bottles in a minute. But it's a nice compliment coming from, I think it's Mark, that he said you're creating people's dream in a glass. So I think that's exactly what you do. Yeah,
that's what we do. Yeah, sometimes we say we convert intangible ideas into tangible liquid, because those ideas you can't touch them, right? But the liquid you can touch it, you can taste it, and it's quite real.
That's good for a t-shirt also, Carsten.
Yeah, it's great for a t-shirt. Yeah.
You have to make it happen.
But you can, and in a lot of I mean, Judith is on a journey where she produces rums, right? Where she's really at the forefront and beginning, and she has to determine a profile of rum by setting the machine and her fermentation in different ways. So she makes certain choices, and then in the end, as you get a certain profile liquid, she can play around with maybe she can play around with her cuts. She can play around with maybe then afterwards aging it. Good idea. And then but it'll always be rum from her particular type of still, made with the particular type of molasses she has access to. So if, for argument's sake, Johnny wants to build a brand, and he really likes Judith's rum, yeah. So he can try and buy rum from Judith, because that's not easy.
No.
And then put that in a bottle and make a little twist of himself, and then, but it's interesting for if you don't have if you don't have your own still, well, what do? You need to get liquids from other people and put it together to create a liquid of your own. And it just happens to be that not all people are as fortunate as Judith to actually have a distillery. I mean, there's more people without distilleries than with distilleries, and luckily that's where companies like ourselves come in, where we can help people create liquids just by listening to them and using different distilleries and different liquids to put together. So that's the way we would approach blending as such. Maybe it's good to go around and see if we have some experiences here at the tables and see what people have come up with and think, or maybe have some questions.
Yeah, so who wants to start, or shall I make a round around everyone? I see Barry likes the smell of a Jamaican. Have you tried to taste it, Barry? Diluted, of course.
Sorry, I was muted. My English is very bad. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, I've tasted. I think it's a little bit too strong for about the alcohol. But yeah, I think I will start with the Jamaican every time.
Every time?
Yeah.
And that's saying something from a whiskey dude.
Yeah.
By the way, so Barry is the one responsible for making the awesome tasting kits you have in front of you. So thanks, Barry, for that.
Welcome. Thank you.
So who's next? Kim, all the way from Belgium.
Hi. I used the Caribbean as a base, and then put the same amount of water in, and then put think about it, a third of that of Barbados, and then a little bit of Jamaica, and it's actually quite nice. It's smooth, but you still have the distinct flavors of the Barbados, and that small amount of Jamaica also comes through. It's quite nice.
Cool. That's a very descriptive. I saw that Richard has half Caribbean Light, 25% Barbados, 20% Guadeloupe. Oh man, he went all the way, and 5% water.
Only
That's not-
5% water. Yeah, he likes his rum strong, this man.
Yeah, but that's not 100%, Richard. So oh no, that was Roald. I'm sorry, that was Roald. Oh no, that was Richard. So that's not 100%, Richard. So what's so is the 45, 50? So 50% of the half Caribbean Light.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the base.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So
Yeah. So what you see here, so both in these examples, you started with the Caribbean Light and you started putting layers on top, where I think Richard went into the age direction first, and then thought, well, I'd like some Guadeloupe in there as well, and that sort of
spice it up.
Spiced up your wood a bit.
Yeah.
I could have added some Jamaican in it, but the pineapple is very strong. The taste, so I don't want it in every rum, which I drink. I love the smell, I love the taste, but particularly in this blend which I created, it's lovely. It's a great. Well, for me, it's a great blend. So try it yourself. It's possible.
But it's also about what we said. I mean, Karsten has so many pieces to choose from, and you could maybe have a different Jamaican rum, not that heavy, and that would work perfectly for you, maybe. So Koen, we haven't met before. Are you willing to share what you have made, or put it in the chat?
Were you asking me?
Yeah.
I did it the other way around. I started with the aged rums and then tried to figure out what I like the best in the aged rums.
Okay.
And I'm still figuring out if it's the Jamaica, what I normally really like, but I also like the agricole one. So I'm still.
It's difficult, right? I have the same problem.
It all tastes good.
I've now created a blend with all four, and actually it's not that good because I like my rums a bit on the heavy side, so it's not enough of the agricole for me. But okay, but thank you. Bart has already put something in the chat, but maybe you want to elaborate on that a bit.
So I'm a bit like Richard. I like the more heavy flavors in my rum. So it's almost completely the same as his. So first started with Caribbean Light, cut it in half, and added some Barbados and a few drops of the Jamaica Heavy. Really, if you drink it, it's full force heavy rum.
Very English style. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you create or what you're describing is more like an English style rum, right? With all the English heritage behind it, for using column still rum, aged column still rum, some pot still in there, and just a touch of Jamaica to make it heavier. Very nice. I would that's a go-to blend direction in for many people, I must say.
Yeah.
What Koen did with some of the Guadeloupe there, you have people which are torn between Guadeloupe and Jamaica in terms of which blender to use and which proportions between the two if you use both of them. Yeah, where Johnny is trying both of them, but he doesn't really know, do I need more Jamaica or more, and you start building and building and building.
Yeah.
But it's you can make several, leave them for a bit, and then try them again after an hour or two.
Yeah.
And then you see how these heavier components actually develop over time in a blend.
Yeah.
That was while you say that point, just before we move on from your comment, that was a question that I had, is how do you account for how these different rums marry with each other? of course, you have experience with knowing, okay, I mix these, it's going to be a little harsh in the beginning, but after a month or so, it might mellow out, and this one might become less, and that one might come through a bit more. Because I know that with my blend, for instance, I actually don't like it for the first month, but after a month, it turns into something entirely different. So how do you take that into consideration when you're designing blends, and tell people give it time?
Yes, I do. People, well, I tell people to give it time. Some people don't have time, and you know, this will develop over time in a bottle, and I will normally know that you know the rough blending that I do will develop and marry over time, and in which direction it'll go. So I feel pretty secure in what I send out. But
do you get those people who ask for blends who come and say, well, I want 50% this, 40% that, and then in your head you're going, that's not going to marry well, but they want it, so you give it to them anyway, or do you advise them?
Yeah. No, I you know, it's in that case, my personal preference is no you know, is nothing to go by, right? Because we facilitate for others. And if somebody really likes that blend, and I think it's not, you know, it's not really what I would do, I will tell them. Yeah, I'll say, but if you were to take a little more of this stuff, or we add another layer in that direction, it might, you know, improve over time. And then it's up to the client if they want to believe me or not, right?
You actually never send just one blend to a customer or a client, right? You send a number of them, varying with different ratios, so they can see at first the first time what comes close to what they had in mind, and then you take it a few levels more, right? Deeper.
Yeah, normally people like to have a choice, right? So you give them a choice of 3, and depending on if people really know what they want, those 3 will be actually quite close together, because they'll all be in the direction that the client wants. People don't know what they want, they get 3 different directions, and then they immediately go towards the one, the other, and then you get feedback on that, and you can elaborate on that sample a little further. So there's but the choice is good, and I always say that, you know, leave them out for a while and see how they develop over time. A month, yeah, that's quite a long time. But you know, the marriage of this liquids it's slightly chemical, right? It's because all these volatiles in these rums and mixing with water, all the volatiles, the molecules, they have different sizes. And what happens is they're all fighting for their space. It's like if you have a grit and you pour sand on top, the sand goes into the grit, and then after a while it settles down to a certain level. There's different sizes, and if you put water with your fresh alcohol, and Judith will tell you, what happens is the whole thing warms up, right? It's really odd, but it's all these molecules which are fighting for space, and they're giving all their energy, which is heat, in fact. And marriage is that same process, but slow over time, with less differences. You know, the difference between alcohol and water is big, so there's a lot of fighting and a lot of heat. And the difference between different rum types is, you know, they're going to be more similar. So over time, very gently, they'll move together into something which is going to be the integrated liquid afterwards. You know, it's a very interesting process, and sometimes I've had instances where there was very exotic blend of, I think, Batavia Arak and some French rum and some Spanish style rum, and this was, you know, initially it was all fine. It looked nice and it smelled nice, and it was interesting, but over time it fell apart. It was, you know, it was awful. And I don't know how, but you know, the only thing I then know is I'm not going to use that combination again because it's not working. So blending is also it's also experience, right?
Karsten, can I ask you which rums from which countries are the most used in all the blends E&A Scheer created?
Yeah, impossible to say.
Oh, because I notice in all the independent bottlers or the independent brands, which I see, there's a lot of Barbados rum used in it, or Dominican Republic, as a base for the blends.
In aged rum, so yeah, if now we put aged rums together, depends on what people want, right? Because people they want an English style rum, yeah, then you start with Barbados and Trinidad and Guyana. They want a Spanish style rum, you can start with Dominican Republic. If it's an aged rum, you start with Dominican Republic. You put some maybe Panama, Nicaragua, Guatemala in there. You could put some Venezuela in there. So there's many different choices to do. Independent bottlers, as such, when they're selecting casks for bottling, that's a completely different ball game. That's not about blending. It's about choosing a certain cask because you like it.
But is it not so that they're not coming to you with I want an English style rum or I want a Spanish style blend of rum? Mm-hmm. Is it not so that they all want a very well selling rum at the to create a very good rum which sells very good? I mean, that's why they come to you, I think.
Not necessarily. It's they come to us because they have a dream, right? And there is no there's no typical client, because every blending project is in fact different, and every liquid put together is different, specific project. Be it it could be from the angle of English style, Spanish style, or it could be from I just want a minimum 3-year-old. And you think of the origins, or I want something which is very good for a rum cake, please. So there's no real general saying about where the most rum in a blend comes from.
Okay.
Judith, do you want to share what blend you have created? We know your rums. I think most of us do. Maybe not all, but.
She probably blended with something of her own as well.
Probably
I did, indeed. Indeed, I thought let's get a bottle of our own and mix it with some of these things, and let's see how it works together. Right. And it's nice.
Well,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
If you have good ingredients, right, the good ingredients to cook with, the meal is going to be good. It's the same with blending rums. If you have good rums to start with, you put them together, it's 9 out of 10 is going to be good.
It's actually a great idea. I'm going to do that as well.
Yeah, swapping the Jamaican for the overproof, the Rummy Club overproof. Yeah.
Though I do notice that it takes quite a long while for it to take some chill, so it really needs a bit more time for resting period. Mm-hmm. I do notice that with a lot of our rums, they're quite intense. They're very they haven't been chilling for a while. So if they're just out of the still like this one is, then it still needs to rest on its own, and then it's already being blended. Then it's a bit too it needs time to settle down, I guess.
Yeah, we call it jumpy.
Jumpy, yeah, it's a good word.
It really jumps around. Yeah, it's because all these volatiles, they're still, they just come off the still. They're still warm. Everything is fighting for a place in that liquid, and different volatiles. You have the very high volatiles that come out first, and then there's a sort of a mean time, and then afterwards you get to smell something different. So also, if you pick up your glass, particularly with fresh rum, it's very interesting, because the initial smell is quite different than if you take it maybe an hour later, or 2 hours later, or a day later. and it sort of develops even if you, well, in your case, it'll develop even in the bottle afterwards, right?
Yeah, definitely. It needs time.
Needs some time, yeah. Which a lot of people don't have these days.
Well, I think patience is quite a virtue in the rum world, so they'll just have to learn, I guess.
Yep, good idea. But I think it's interesting if you so you use your own rum, right? Which has quite a particular profile. It's not like the Guadeloupe, it's not like the Jamaica, but it's quite different and in between, so to speak. And did you try and put some of that in an aged rum?
Yes, I did. I did it in the blend of the two aged rums. I thought it, because it's already quite extinguished, that it needed just a bit, and then in the aged ones, which was given an interesting character to both of them. So I think it's nice because we don't really have a lot of aged rums because we just started. Mm-hmm. It's nice for us to combine it with some aged rums and see what that might do.
It's a nice experiment, yeah.
Mark, would you like to? I saw a comment. You've mixed the Dominican with Jamaican, and you're looking quite happy. So you're done blending, I think.
It's rum, so I'm always happy. Yeah.
Good answer. Otherwise, I would mute you again.
No, I just had the Dominican, which is not really my favorite, but he added a few drops of Jamaican, and it really got very flowery, really sweet, and really loved the taste. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
I'm gathering right now, everybody has a glass in front of them of one of those blends which they've been trying, and they keep smelling it and keep tasting it and are enjoying it.
I have to get back to some of them.
So mine is, I took the Dominican 3-year-old basic, put some of the 8-year-old on top of it, actually, let's say a proportion 20-80, and then added a few drops of the Guadeloupe. Guadeloupe makes just a little touch to make it interesting.
That was exactly what I had in mind.
Which is, you know, it's a bit of a geeky blend, because it's on the one hand, you if you just put those aged rums together, you might be a little mainstream or something like that. You know, it's like somebody said, the Dominican is a bit sweetish. I want a bit more, so we'll put some of that 8-year-old in. And then if you're really, you know, on the geeky side, you like to add a few drops of the either Jamaica or the Guadeloupe, give it a touch which goes in a different direction and makes it interesting. And I think I like to do that in blends as well. Normally in a set of blends which we send to customers, there's always one quirky one in there because I think it's fun. Sometimes people love it, and sometimes people don't get it and go for mainstream all the time. But yeah, that's one of the fun things to do. Is just to create something slightly different. The trouble is that sometimes if you do that, right? So for just as this example of using a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a bit of Guadeloupe, people come to me initially for an aged rum, and then you know, if you break it down to them, so I've used a 3-year-old, I've used an 8-year-old, I've used some fresh Guadeloupe. Shit, now there's no longer a full aged rum. So now what? You know, so then you have to take the Guadeloupe out because it doesn't fit the age statement or something like that. That happens obviously where people have a very set idea of what they wanted, and they can't take any quirky ideas. In other instances, they love it because, you know, we're not going to put an age statement on our bottle anyway, so, you know, the more interesting the liquid, the better. So who haven't we had, Gianni?
Yeah, so I should have written down what I've made, because I've made like 5 blends, and now I don't really know which one I made. So this is obviously the aged ones. So I think we started with what you made us do. So the Barbados with the Dominican That's this one with some water. I had one just a minute, which yeah. So this is my Jamaican and a Guadeloupe blend. Two flavor profiles I really enjoy. So I haven't done anything with this one, but for Trump, this is, so this would be my, which is, it's not a base, but this would be my base actually to build further on this, smelling them after a couple of minutes. That would be the blend I would proceed with, to be honest. Yeah, definitely.
So I see Barry is catching on to the aged Guadeloupe blend there. Yeah,
it's surprisingly sweet.
That's funny, isn't it?
Just a third of all and a little bit of water.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. So Chris,
I think this is the kind of like which direction you want to go with it, because one, I had two blends that I've been sipping on that I'm like, these are both really good, but both entirely different purposes. And one of them was, again, the 3-8 in Guadeloupe, as we were just discussing. And then the other one was similar to Gianni's, and I had the light Caribbean with some Guadeloupe and Jamaican, which for me is the perfect daiquiri blend. So it's kind of like, do I want a funky, grassy white rum or unaged rum that's really fresh and will work well with citrus and sugar, or do I want something that's interesting and complex to sip on that has some age and some kind of rounder vanilla notes in those. So those were the two directions, but I didn't overlap so much the aged and the unaged. It was more the unaged worked well together for me, and then the aged worked well together. But I agree that a little bit of the Guadeloupe and the aged was, it just gives it something else that's not there. It gives it something interesting, and I find that the Dominican, I mean, it is a quite basic rum. It's a column still. Most of the flavor that's in the Dominican is from the aging. The Dominican before the aging is basically the first rum. So it is a basic one, and then you get the Foursquare, which is, I mean, it's awesome. It's delicious, but it's Foursquare. It's Barbados. It's vanilla, coconut. It's kind of I like Mitch Wilson's description of it, the pina colada rum. It's a little bit of pineapple, very heavy on the coconut. It's just a super easygoing, well-rounded rum. So I think the Guadeloupe in that livens it up a bit. It brightens it in a way.
Brightens it, yeah. But the Guadeloupe in itself needs other rums to freshen up. Like that was the first example we had. Take some of that, and it is rather thick, oily, and sort of grassy and briny as you describe it. Yeah. So lots of fun. So is there any other questions I can help you with? Because
there's a question from Martijn from Rummy Club as well. So do you take into account the different ABVs before blending, and what's the impact of the ABV for the actual marrying of the liquids?
That actually is a very good question, because different ABVs means different water levels, right? And water and alcohol. So if you take very high proof alcohol and you add water, the higher let's say you take, if you want to experiment, you could take some of that the light rum, and you add water, and it'll heat up, and it'll start to be opaque and everything like that. It'll just cloud up a bit, and it needs to really fight and settle down, so it really heats up quickly. If you have different alcohol levels, that means also different levels of water in the blends. So you're starting from different levels. They have to get closer to each other. So that's a lot of fighting. Whereas if they're at the same alcohol level when you're blending them, there's less fighting. It's more subtle fighting, right? So it's either alcohol molecules fighting with each other, or water and alcohol molecules fighting with each other. It's a different set of different weapons.
Yeah, it's definitely a fight every time, but a different fight.
But So in marrying liquids, it's best probably to do it at the same alcohol level, and if you dilute, it's best to do it in small steps.
So, but to be precise, so what do you, if a client comes to you, do you bring all the liquids down to one certain ABV, or do you blend like we do now and then you water it down and then send it out to the clients? What's the process?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. So normally what we have in order to keep your blends consistent, you need something which is called intermediate blends. So you make sure that you take original types and you interblend them with each other in advance and bring them down to, in our case, for most of the rums, bring them down to 75%, leave those to rest, and then at 75% we do the blends. In general, for aged rums, it's around 65%. Now, if an aged rum is 66%, we're not going to dilute it to 65 and store it, because that, you know, you're just going to lose stuff. But then you can blend the 65 and the 66 easily with each other. But let's say a 95 and a 65, that's a big bridge to gap. So you do it in steps.
Yeah, maybe one silly question. So if you send out, does a client also ask you for a specific ABV? So and if not, what ABV do you send out the samples at?
Normally we try to send out at 75% or distillation strength as high as possible, because our theory is that we're sending out a base material for somebody who is going to dilute and bottle. They will be diluting, filtering, maybe coloring, and then bottling, right? So why would we transport water? That's you know, that just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Are you also advising clients on which ABV percentage they should bottle it? Because one blend could be very good at 40% ABV, and the other one needs 48 or 45 or 43% ABV.
Yeah.
I've got some examples of my own. I mean, on our last Whiskey and Rum Fest, we had that Dingle, the whiskey, and it was bottled at 60.6%, but it needed water. You have to water it down to have a good taste. Are you also advising people or clients to bottle it on a certain ABV percentage?
Advising is maybe not the right word. We do show the options, and for certain, you know, premium aged rums, it will be a waste to dilute them to 40%, right? So we will advise people to take 43, 46% if that works in their particular country environment, because it also depends very much on the country. Some countries, the pricing becomes prohibitive if the alcohol percentage is too high because of the excise duty. In terms of quality, yeah, we do. It's always a part of the journey to talk about the application of the liquid and where you're going to sell it. If it's going to be a supermarket product, you know, people might even want to bottle it at 37.5. It's low, but that's what people do.
But maybe you need other rums then for the blend to make it tastier, or I mean, if you use a certain kind of blend, it could ruin the taste if you dilute it to 37.5% or 40%.
Yeah, in a lot of supermarket brands, taste is not the first thing people are looking for. The price is the first thing people are looking for. But it's always something nice for us to be able to put some taste into a supermarket brand, but not always easy. But alcohol percentage as such, yeah, we do talk about it, and some people take it into extremes where they go with really strange alcohol percentages, you know, where they want 57.2%, or they want, you know, they're going to bottle at at 46.3. Why? Because they think that's the ideal or the optimum for that particular blend, and we will have experimented at different levels, and sometimes you get clients who want us to send samples so they can dilute it to 46, 43, 40, and then they choose afterwards. It's a lot of these things are done when the blend is finished, and then you try and find the optimal alcohol percentage for that particular blend.
Do you all do the blends yourself, or do you got a team of people who is making the blends?
That's a team. Yeah, to be honest, there's quite a few people who do that at Scheer these days. I am what they call the master blender, so things need to be passed by me or my nose. But yeah, a lot of the conceptual stuff work is already done by the team, and some of you might have looked online at the website, and there's this thing called a blending tool, where we take people through all the dimensions and collect their answers, and already based on those answers, the team can sort of make an initial set of samples almost.
So all the blends are not done by one person, but it's a team thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have more noses. I mean, everything would depend on this thing here. You know, that would be difficult.
Especially this time of the the last 2 years.
Yeah,
it's important to have more noses.
Important to have a lot of noses. Yeah, and you can imagine that conceptual blending, right? So at the initial phase where you're taking the dream and trying to put it into a liquid, there's a lot of nosing and on a lab scale. But then afterwards, you know, when you're actually selling the stuff, you're selling 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 liters of that same blend. It needs to be consistent over time as well. So we have warehouse guys who compare blends with each other and compare blends over time and things like that. So there's you know, it's an integral part of our company, those noses.
What's the minimum amount of liters one has to buy from you? If do you have a minimum amount? Yeah,
we normally go for 1,000 liters. That's for a bespoke blend, which is, you know, if you're serious about the brand, yeah, it's a lot of bottles. But on the other hand, it's doable. However, if you buy one single cask at the main rum company, it goes as low as 200 liters, right?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's one question from Barry. So he says that he has an old Jamaican rum sitting there. Well, it's actually empty. Oh, there it is in front. So it's a rum from the 60s, and he says it's not as tasty or as pleasant as the one in the tasting tube, and he thought it might be due to a difference in distilling, but could be a host of factors, right?
Yeah, that could be. I mean, there is Jamaica rum is not Jamaica rum, if that makes any sense. There is a lot of rums being produced on the island Jamaica, from column stills, from pot stills, in varying levels of heaviness, so to speak. So even from Jamaica, you can get very light and bland rums, if you like. So the fact that the name Jamaica is on there doesn't automatically give you that pineapple note, which is in this sampling set. That's a very particular direction which was chosen specifically for this blending session.
Yeah, and then still aging, location, and everything comes into consideration also, of course.
Correct. Yeah.
Because I think because this was a brand from Haarlem, Lifford and Schudel. You must know this, Carsten. Does it ring a bell?
It doesn't really ring a bell because it's probably, you know, you cannot imagine, but it'll be before my time.
Ah, okay.
I'm old, but I'm not that old.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry. Yeah.
And, but you know, the chances are pretty big that original liquid would have come from Scheer.
Yeah.
You know, in the 60s or in the 50s or something like that.
Yeah. Sorry for that. I complimented on your looks before everyone was here, and I now blew it. I'm sorry. So any more questions for Carsten at this point, or can he continue with his presentation, guys? Yeah.
I had a question, but I think that you might answer it in your presentation, so I'm going to wait until the end.
Good man.
So let me see if there is still a lot to be presented, because there is not really. So we were looking at this bit, right? And then I was telling everybody that, you know, once you start ordering stuff, we need to make sure that the blending is consistent. So in fact, the whole idea of making intermediate blends and then a recipe is something. So it's a multi-step process where, you know, you buy stuff from origin. Let's say Judith has made a beautiful rum for us, and that's one batch. And then, you know, a few weeks later or a few years later, we'll ask you for the same stuff, and she'll make another batch, and it could be slightly different. It'll be the same style, very, very similar, but it will be different. So what we would do is we would then buy that again, and do multiple purchases of Judith and interblend those into a type which is a little more stable than every single batch. And then, you know, if we then start using that in that particular component in a blend, and the blend takes off, and we'll ask Judith, so do you have any more of that? And she says, no, well, I've changed my style now. I only have style, you know, this style, the bluer style I have now. So then we don't have it anymore. So we have to be able to come up with an alternative for the intermediate blend. So we make intermediate blends which normally consist of 8 to 10 original types, and make sure that you know, even if one of the 8 or 10 original types is no longer available, we can compensate with the other ones, and make sure that the step here is always going to be very, very consistent, because based on those intermediate blends you can make a very good recipe. So where we were just looking at conceptual blending by turning, you know, a dream into a liquid, there's a few steps after that when you actually have that liquid, and it needs to be supplied consistently over time. There's also blending involved there. Maybe not so romantic, but it is something which needs to be done, and I think, you know, it'll be done by the distillers themselves as well, because, you know, before they send out a standard shopping size for us is 25,000 liters per batch, right? And 25,000 liters for most distillers is several batches which have been interblended and then sent out in an ISO tank to us. But that's not enough, so we take multiple tanks and blend them again. Now, this is the last slide actually I wanted to show you, and this is talking about if you then. I started off really with, you know, we also want to know about blending, but actually before you do blending, you have to have a bit of a picture in your head where you want to go, because that makes blending so much easier. If you know you want an aged rum, you would have automatically taken those 2 gold bottles first, right? And then if you want something a little interesting, you would have taken one of these 2, the Guadeloupe or the Jamaica as a layer on top. So if you know where you're going, blending is a lot easier. So that's why we always say, you know, we have this tool, goes through all the dimensions which I went through very quickly. Gather your thoughts, think about what the profile is, what age, what origin, what application, was it supposed to look like, all those things, put them together into a pack of requirements, so to speak. And then, you know, if you send that to us, it's easy for us to put a blend together. and then start tasting those blends, and a lot of trial and error after that to be able to find exactly what you're looking for. I think we went through this process with you, Chris, yeah? Several times.
Yeah. For the final blend, I think we went through it 25 times. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris is an example, right? This is I don't want to misuse you, Chris, but
use away. I'm fine with it.
Chris was Chris is not your typical rum blender, because he's extremely knowledgeable on rum and learning along the way, and he wants to try every component and wants to try every interaction between the components, and has probably tasted more rums than all of us put together here. And you know, it's really fun to work with Chris on projects, because he's very specific about things. He wants it this way, and then he wants it that way, and then all of a sudden he has a completely different idea and he goes that direction. But it's really fun, but it's not a typical rum client. So that's why he goes through 25 samples before he chooses, whereas a lot of other projects, you know, within the initial sample set of 3 or the second 3, people are sort of, that's the one I want to work. That direction is pretty clear.
I can say though that you did, because I sat down with you, I remember quite early on. I was probably at around blend 6 or 7 or something like that, and you showed me the chart that we were just looking at before and the directions in this. And I remember us discussing the fact that I was doing small changes.
Yeah.
But I was also at the same time discussing how I wanted it in a different direction. And you explaining to me that you can't change the direction by doing these small changes. You need to change something on the axis on this graph if you actually want to make that change. So either go woodier or go more ester, but you can't change the ester a little bit, because that's not going to make a big change in your blend. And that was actually the question that I said I was going to wait until the end is exactly this, is that you have ester as one scale and you have age as the other. But esters, I mean, in this case, you're talking about one specific ester, kind of, or a flavor amount, but esters can go in so many different directions, of which one is an ester that comes also from aging. So it like there's a loop in there somehow that happens, and how do you kind of account for that in 2 dimensions?
Yeah, you can't, and the example today is that you could say esters, but we just take that as an example of power, of flavor, of volatiles, and where this line was going straight up, you know, you would say that line going straight up is the Jamaican style, and then actually the Guadeloupe style is slightly different, right? Now you can try and put that into a graph, but it doesn't work. So we simplify things, because I'm a simple guy, and I said, well, you know, you go either that way or that way, and you can go in between. But it's true what you're saying is that if you want, you know, in a blend, right, if you want to take a direction, you have to turn the steering wheel. It's just like in a car. You can't just think I'm going to the right and nothing happens. If you just do this, now you have to take the steering wheel and see where it goes, and then you can veer back again if you want.
I can say it wasn't just a fun process for you, it was a very fun process for me. So and it's still ongoing. At least that part is done, but more things ongoing now. So
more to come. Always
exactly.
Good. As long as it's rum, it's good.
Exactly.
Chris, maybe you're doing it on purpose so you can drink more rum.
I don't need help doing that.
Yeah, just look behind him.
That sounds like Chris, yeah. No, I have certainly one more question for you, Karsten. Roald says that he tried the Scheer House blend at Rummy Club. Can you share, or do you want to share what was in that blend? Do you remember that blend?
Do I remember it? It's what I drink on a daily basis.
Oh, great.
Or more or less on a daily basis. Yeah, so it's the funny thing about the Scheer house blend is that it has age, it has esters, so it has a bit of Jamaican in there. It has some of that Barbados in there. You could almost make it out of these 5 samples if you try very hard. But it doesn't have a minimum age, so it contains fresh rums, it contains aged rums, it contains different ages, different ester levels. But it is something which, at some point, we put together, and people, anybody you pour a glass of that, and either in ginger ale or on ice, people like it. You know, it's a very, very easy, likable rum.
So, how come that I don't know this blend?
Probably you never asked, Richard.
Where can I get it?
Just like me. join the club.
So okay, so there's only one person on this panel who actively got a bottle from us, I think. And that's because we got a bottle of hers. So.
I'm sorry, guys. That's the way it works.
Yeah,
I liked it. It was good. I had a sample of it, and yeah, I enjoyed it very much this summer in my garden with a book. It's a nice and easy. I would prefer it like 46 ABV, but if you use it a lot for mixing, 40 is good, I guess. But it's a very flavorful rum.
Yep.
It has a little bit of everything in it.
That's the good thing about it, and that's why it works for a lot of people. It's, you know, you could say it's mainstream. In fact, I normally drink it just over ice. I put lots of ice in the glass and put some of that rum in it. Maybe a splash of ginger ale if I need to. Or if I have ginger ale about.
Yeah, at the risk of getting back to your age, Karsten, Johannes, who joined later, he has a funny question. I think it's funny. How long does it keep being fun to blend rum for a living?
Oh, quite a while.
Answer that, or should I just kick him out of the group?
No, leave him in. It's a good question. It's, you know, and every time you make okay, this sounds very corny, right? But every time you make a dream come true, it is extremely satisfying. It is really, really fun to take people along that whole process from, you know, I have an idea, or could we talk about this, to a final product. And I can see myself doing that for years. So yeah. How long does it stay fun? Yeah, as long as you can blend rum, it will stay fun, I guess.
Good, thanks, Karsten. He thinks it's an excellent answer. Yeah,
thanks.
To a shitty question. No. Thanks, Johannes. Any more questions for Karsten at this point, guys?
Yeah, what about the new countries, or the new countries, the rums coming from Africa and from Asia? Are they used in blends already, or is there no client yet who wanted to make a blend of those new countries, rum producing countries?
Yeah, they're being used along the way. You're saying new countries, but yeah, I recall a few years ago that we started with Australian rum, and now everybody seems to have Australian rum, right? And it's used in blends, and so now new origins. Yeah, what do we have? We have things like Ghana, or like Vietnam, like Philippines,
Netherlands,
Thailand, Netherlands. Netherlands is actually quite a nice origin. So are they used in blends? Yeah, they start dripping in. It's also a learning process. So the newer the origin, and the more I need to play around with it to understand it. So it takes a little while until they're you know, in all the blends, but yeah, bit by bit they'll be coming in.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Ghana is nice. It's different. It's quite a heavy style rum, yeah, Chris?
Yeah, the one I have is intense. It's sugarcane based and very, very high ester as well. But I don't know if it's because I've heard that they've changed, at least where that one came from, that they've changed ownership and they've installed now a large multi-column still. So I don't know if it's still going to be the same. But at least, yeah, the Ghana that I tried is as heavy almost as the Jamaican we tried today.
the one in Denmark.
Yeah, it was through the 1423, and then it went to Rum Deluxe is the bottle that I have, but it's intense.
Yeah, I tried that I think a couple of years ago. That was great. That was an eye opener at I think it was Berlin Rumfest. Joshua had a sample of that one.
Yeah, the distiller was there.
No, Joshua had a sample. I think.
Yep.
That was so I keep asking when he's gonna bottle that one.
It is bottled, but it's bottled through Rum Deluxe. So he sold it to Kim and those guys in Denmark.
Oh, okay.
And it's bottled.
All fantastic people.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to say that now, right?
Very diplomatic answer, Carsten.
Yeah, that was an excellent answer. Okay, guys, are we all done here? No more questions for Carsten. This is your the final call.
I have a question.
Sure.
Carsten, I wonder, with the history of Scheer, you probably have a lot of samples of rums long gone. Do you sometimes get a request to emulate some types of rum that are not around anymore? And
Yeah.
how and can you actually, does it actually happen?
We get that from time to time, right? So you get like, could somebody make me a Virgin Island rum of the 40s or something like that? And or let's say a Guyana rum of the 50s, or so you have different different questions like that, and then it's a bit of a history lesson and searching to figure out what it is people are exactly looking for. Sometimes they come with very specific distilleries and very specific time frames, so you can sort of figure out what stills were being used at that time frame and what were the marks which are being sold at that time frame. So we have archives of things like that. Sometimes we know the particular marks which were used in blends, so many years ago, and we can put something together, and it'll emulate sort of what it would have been. But it's never the same, obviously. It's just, it's a bit like there's this whiskey called Shackleton. I don't know if you've heard of that, but Shackleton whiskey is a story about Shackleton was an explorer, went up to Nova Zembla or something like that, and then they had a case of whiskey and it was frozen in their boat, and years later the master blender of White Mackay, a guy called Richard Patterson, actually recreated the whiskey, which was then, just by trying to figure out what was in that blend at that time span and things like that. So we do get questions, and it's a bit of a history, it's a bit of research and things like that, and we can try. You get close, but you'll never have the exact thing, right? Because it's not it's long gone. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Johannes was asking, no one mentioned the Ray and Nephew 17.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Yeah. But I think Chris answered him that I think he'll get close, no problem. So everyone, oh wait, there's one more question from Johannes. What are the blending missions that you enjoy the most? Not sure what he means by missions. Otherwise, unmute yourself, Johannes.
Yeah, I mean, actual commissions from clients, which goals and which quests do you enjoy doing the most?
Yeah, I had a few where people really had by the risk of saying all sorts of brands, but there was stories, like the Equiano, which was a great story. Blends like Black Tot rums are fantastic because they're historic stories where you need to put stuff together. A thing like E&A Scheer is quite, it's quite different. It's quirky. It needs to be bold, and so all these sort of exceptional stories and bring exceptional stories into a liquid. Those are the ones that I enjoy the most. Great stories, you get a great rum.
So I have a question here, Karsten. What advice do you have for people like us who want to discover the world of rum more, besides tasting and discovering favorite flavors? Well, that's actually how you discover rum, I think, but maybe you have a different answer. So what advice do you have for us down the path of the rum world?
Rum is a big journey of discovery, right? So if you go to all these online events and podcasts and things like that, you hear a lot of people talking about different aspects of rum, different viewpoints. Soak it all in, and you'll learn a lot about rum. Then there's the whole historic part of it, which is interesting, and then there's a whole production part, which is interesting. So there's many different angles of which you can actually approach rum apart from just tasting. Talk to a distiller and talk about the choices distillers make to get to their rum. Talk to a blender, choices. Talk to a bartender. Why does he use several types of rum in their cocktails? There's so many different angles, but it all starts by talking, asking questions, and looking around.
So still questions are rolling in, Karsten. So hopefully you've eaten well. We're here for a long haul. No, so if you have a favorite rum.
Yeah, well, the Scheer blend, of course.
Oh, that was easy. No, try. No, but do you have...
Liar?
Okay. So there is actually a rum which I've bought, and you can imagine if you're sitting on millions of liters of rum, why would you buy rum? But some of those Black Tot blends I really enjoy, and some of the Australian blends I really enjoy. Some of them, yeah. So those would be probably my favorites. They're not for everybody, but that's what I like.
And also a question is, do you use tools for next to your nose and your palate at Scheer to make blends?
Yeah, so a gas chromatograph is a machine, right?
Yeah.
And the gas chromatograph, you can tell this machine to find 10 different volatiles in a liquid. But the nice thing about rum is that there's at least 200 or 300 different volatiles in rum. So you could have a gas chromatic profile of different liquids or rums, which the gas chromatic profile looks the same, and then you nose and taste them, and they can be completely different because you're missing out on the other 290 components. So we use gas chromatography or we use external laboratories as a benchmark, but nothing else, because their nose is far and far more sophisticated than that machine.
Thank you. Alrighty. I think now everyone has stopped typing, Karsten. Oh no. Oh yeah.
No, Robert is right about the Shackleton being a marketing whiskey story. But it's a great example to show people, you know, that you try and recreate something from the past based on stories.
Yeah. Usually Robert Patterson is very nice, very good at what he does, right?
He's incredible, this guy. If you ever meet him, he's
I was immediately thinking about him when you said you were throwing out samples of rum in the in your apartment, because that's what he does at every tasting. He puts whiskey in his glass and then throws it out onto the public. Doesn't matter. So that's one trademark of his. But yeah, fantastic nose. I would say a counterpart of you in the whiskey world.
I had many fun moments with him in his laboratory where, you know, this is years ago, really years ago, where he started.
Right.
Yeah, this quite a fun laboratory there.
Awesome. So guys, I think this is it right now. So again, thank you very much, first of all, Karsten, for doing this. As I said, I was really looking forward to this one. Thanks again. Hopefully see you again soon. Good luck with everything. To all of you, thanks so much for joining.